Do you think it's simply that there are different systems coming out of college and the NFL, or that the way the league has progressed makes it more difficult for quarterbacks to succeed? Or, is there really a shortage of quality quarterbacking?
Well, I think sometimes if you look at teams, and if they were brutally honest, about 50% of them would rather have a better starting quarterback than they have. About 75% would rather have a better backup than they have. Everybody would have a right to have a better third quarterback than they have, and they're not around. And and I think these guys in college now are doing so much more with the full field and the read options and doing that. And I think some of these guys, the NFL is now tailoring their offenses to a certain extent. I know even Andy Dalton runs some of the run pass option stuff. So I think the guys are more ready, and I think it looks like we've got a new wave coming up. You got to love what Patrick Mahomes is doing, there. And Jared Goff, all of a sudden, when they kind of changed that offensive style out with the Rams, is doing well. Russell Wilson, everybody thought, well, geez, he's too short to play quarterback in the NFL. I mean, my gosh, he was at North Carolina State, finished up at Wisconsin, and I don't know if anybody's playing the position any better than him right now.
I don't think they were watching enough game film. I think there was a quote from the Washington State coach,
Mike Leach.
Mike Leach, sorry. There was a quote from him about Gardner Minshew. He said that guys were calling him up and saying, can he throw the deep ball? Is he mobile? Does he read the field? And Leach's first question back to them was, did you watch our game film? Can't you tell that yourself? And I think we do tend to look nowadays at the measurements, the measurables, the combine, all that kind of stuff, and maybe not enough at how a guy plays the game.
Well, I always thought as a coach, and I think the game's probably has passed me by. I've been out of coaching now for 10 years, but one of the things that I always looked at was a quarterback accurate. I think, I always go back to Sonny Jurgensen back in the day. Sonny could have his arm at any angle, and he was going to throw the ball from here to there and know where it was going. Sonny was a naturally accurate guy. And I think it's tough to make a quarterback that's maybe a 50% passer in college to think that he's going to get up to 65%. I think the other thing that you look at is throwing mechanics. That by the time a guy gets in the NFL, he's been throwing that way for so long that it's tough to change the way that he throws. And I think a lot of the other things, as far as the footwork and the offense, you can go ahead and train a guy to do. But I think accuracy and our arm position are two things that's tough to change.
To change the subject, now, what can we expect from the Bengals on Sunday against the Rams at Wembley?
Well, somehow we got to find a running game. It's our offensive line has been banged up, and when you draft a big tackle number one, and he doesn't even make it to training camp before he has surgery, and now they're on their fourth left tackle, and I don't know of any team in the National Football League that has 4 left tackles. So that's been a little bit of a struggle for him, and when you can't run the football, that puts a lot of pressure on Andy Dalton, and Andy's having a better year than people give him credit for, but we'd like to try to find a running game, and that falls to the offensive line and Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard. And so we've got to find a way to get that running game going to kind of open up down the field.
They were getting nothing last week. I mean, they were hitting a line of scrimmage with no daylight of it.
Right. It hurts that A.J. Green has been out. There's one of your big plays, potential guys that kind of can take the extra guy out of the box, take the top off the coverage if you have to. And then, we got to find a way to stop the run. Running quarterbacks have hurt us the last couple of weeks. I don't think Jared Goff is that kind of guy, but teams have been running the football successfully against the Bengals. So I think, being able to run it and stop the run is going to be key Sunday.
Zac Taylor's from that same kind of mold as Sean McVay, obviously, but it doesn't look like you can put that kind of an offense in, given the problems that you've just stated.
Well, you've got to try to find a way to create something, and like I say, when your offensive line has been decimated a little bit, it becomes tough to try to figure out a way that you can get that done. And you got to, all of a sudden, Andy's trying to throw the ball quick, and and screens, and of course they had an interception for a touchdown off a screen last week, which didn't turn out very well. So it's they're struggling right now, but I tell you, I really like Zac as a coach. He's got a plan. He believes in his plan. I think it's a very sound plan. The players buy in, and he has not lost the locker room, and these guys still have a lot of fight in them. And you know, when you got a team that's 0-7 and is struggling a little bit, they become very dangerous, and we think this is the week we're going to turn it around.
Yeah, a lot of people say when you're 0-7, it's time to think about rebuilding and, you know, jettisoning some of your higher paid players or guys on the last years of contracts. Do you agree with that kind of philosophy?
Well, you know, I think it kind of depends a little bit. You know, I say, well, maybe this is Andy's last year. Well, who are you going to get that's any better than Andy Dalton? And actually, I happen to be a big Andy Dalton fan, and you know, and I know he's in the last year of his contract, and all of a sudden be careful what you wish for, because there may not be a guy better than him available the next year. So I hope he's back. And you know, AJ Green is 31 now, and he's kind of had a history of injuries. And Tyler Eifert is back, although he's healthy this year. He's had a history of injuries. So those are kind of tough decisions that you have to make. But I think that they've got a nucleus of big players. I'd like to see those guys come back. Geno Atkins is another veteran on the first time. Carlos Dunlop, I think that still have a lot left, and you'd like to see those guys, you know, because number one, they're good football players, but they're quality people too, and they're good for the locker room.
It's amazing how Geno jumps off the tape at you when you look at games, even when you're losing, you know, and losing badly.
Right. You know, I think he had 3 sacks last week, and he hadn't had any, you know, beforehand. But he's, you know, he's a perennial Pro Bowl player, and so I think there is some talent. We just got to kind of get some guys healthy a little bit and see how it goes. I mean, you know, their cornerbacks have been decimated as well. I mean, their 2 starters are out, and so you're trying to fill in, and, you know, I don't think anybody can survive too many injuries.
Well, let's hope that they can show something at Wembley and get that surprise. And thanks for taking the time. And good luck to you and the Bengals, and good luck for the Hall of Fame.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hope you enjoyed the Nat Coombs Show presented by Paddy Power Fantasy. There's plenty more where that came from. Just click subscribe to ESPN UK and you won't miss a trick.